And welcome back to Faces of Truth Live, where we attempt to help Americans think for themselves again and in the process spread truth throughout the minds of humanity. My name's Alexander McCauley, and for the next few minutes, I'm going to be reading from an interesting book that I found recently. It's called the General Smith's views of the powers and policies of the government of the United States. It was published by John Taylor Printer in Nauvoo, Illinois in 1844. Joseph Smith Jr. was mayor of Nauvoo, Illinois, a city he built from a swamp. It became one of the most prosperous cities in Illinois, even to rival Chicago at the time. And it was because of Joseph Smith's views on United States politics. During his campaign for President of the United States, Joseph Smith gave this speech, and here I will be reading it for you. Views of the powers and policy of the government of the United States. Born in a land of liberty and breathing an air of uncorrupted with Sirocco of barbarous climes, I ever feel a double anxiety for the happiness of all man, both in time and in eternity. My cogitations, like Daniel's, have for a long time troubled me. When I view the conditions of man throughout the world, and more especially in this boasted realm, where the Declaration of Independence holds these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, because the spirit in them is covered with one minute. But at the same time, some 2 or 3 million of people are held as slaves for life because the spirit within them is covered with a darker skin than ours. The hundreds of our own kindred for an infraction or supposed infraction of some otherwise statute have to be incarcerated in dungeon glooms, while the duelist, debauchee, and defaulter for millions and other criminals take the upper rooms at feasts, or like the bird of passage find a more congenial clime by flight. The wisdom which ought to be characterized, the which ought to characterize the freest, wisest, most noble nation of the 19th century should, like the sun, in its meridian splendor, warm every object beneath its rays. And the main efforts of her officers, who are nothing more or less than servants of the people, ought to be directed to ameliorate the condition of all, black or white, bond or free, for the best books say, God hath made of one blood all nations of man, for to dwell on all the face of the earth. Quote from the Bible. Our common country presents to all men, the same advantages, the same facilities, and the same prospects, the same honors, and the same rewards, without hypocrisy. The Constitution, when it says, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America, meant just what it said, without reference to color or condition, ad infinitum. Greek, meaning infinitely applicable. The Latin, sorry. The aspirations of and executions of a virtuous people, the aspirations and expectations of a virtuous people, and environed with so wise, so liberal, so deep, so broad, and so high a character of equal rights as ministration of the laws are entrusted with as much sanctity as the prayers of the saints are treated in heaven, that love, confidence, union, like the sun, moon, and stars, should bear witness, forever singing as they shine, the hand that made us is divine. Unity is power, and when I reflect on the importance of it to the stability of all governments, I am astounded that the silly moves of persons and parties to foment discord in order to ride into power on the current of popular excitement, nor am I less surprised that at the stretches of power and restrictions of rights, which too often appear as acts of legislators to pave the way to some favorite political scheme as distributed that as destitute of intrinsic merit as the wolf's heart is of the milk of human kindness. A Frenchman would say, almost all men like wealth and power. I must dwell on this subject longer than others, for nearly 100 years ago, that golden patriot, Benjamin Franklin, drew up a plan of union for the then colonies of Great Britain that now are such an independent nation, which, among many wise provisions for obedient children under their fathers, more rugged hand had this: they have power to make laws, lay and levy such general duties, imports, and taxes as to them shall appear most equal and just, considering the ability and other circumstances of the inhabitants in the several colonies, and such as many may be collected in with the industry with unnecessary burden. 1 minute. I skipped something. Bear with me. Considering the ability and other circumstances of the most equal and just, of the least inconvenience to the people, rather discouraging luxury, rather discouraging or could you please lay down? Lay down. Good boy. Good boy. Lay down and listen. Lay down and listen. Oh. Okay. That's a warning. I must dwell on this subject longer than others, for nearly 100 years ago, that golden patriot Benjamin Franklin drew up a plan of union which, among many wise provisions for obedient children under their father's more rugged hand, had this: They have power to make laws and levy such general duties, imports, or taxes as to them shall appear most equal and just. Considering the ability and other other circumstances of the inhabitants in the several colonies, and such as may be collected with the least inconvenience to the people, rather discouraging luxury than loading industry with unnecessary burdens. In other words, penalizing people uh, for prospering and progressing. They weren't penalizing people for prospering and progressing. Great Britain surely lacked the laudable humanity and fostering clemency to grant such a just plan of union, but the sentiment remains like the land that honored its birth as a partner for the wise men to study the covenant convenience of the people more than the comfort of the cabinet. And one of the most noble fathers of our freedom and country's glory, great in war, great in peace, great in estimation of the world, and great in heart of his countrymen, in the hearts of his countrymen. The illustrious Washington said in his first inaugural address to Congress, "I behold the surest pledges that as on one side no local prejudices or attachments, no separate views or party and animosities will misdirect the comprehensive and equal eye which ought to watch over this great assemblage of communities and interests. So on another, that the foundations of our national policy will be laid in pure and immutable principles of private morality, and the preeminence of free government be exemplified by all the attributes which can win the affections of its citizens and command the respect of the world. Verily, here shines the virtue and wisdom of a statesman in such lucid rays that every succeeding Congress followed the rich instructions in all their deliberation in all their deliberations and in enactments for the benefit and convenience of the whole community and communities of which it is composed, no sound of a rebellion in South Carolina, no rupture in Rhode Island, no mob in Missouri expelling her citizens by executive authority, corruption in the ballot boxes, a border warfare between Ohio and Michigan, hard times, or in our case, Mexico and the United States, hard times and distress, outbreak on outbreak in the principal cities, murder, robbery, defalcation, scarcity of money, and a thousand other difficulties would have torn asunder the bonds of the Union, destroyed the confidence of man with man, and left the great body of the people to mourn over misfortunes in poverty brought on by corrupt legislation in an hour of proud vanity for self-aggrandizement. Self-aggrandizement. The great Washington, soon after the foregoing faithful admonition for the common welfare of his nation, further advised Congress that among many interesting objects which will engage our attention, that of the providing for the common defense will merit particular regard. To be prepared for war is one of the most effective means of preserving peace. The Italian would say, bono aviso, good advice. The elder Adams, in his inaugural address, gives national pride such a grand turn of justification that every honest citizen must look back upon the infancy of the United States with an approving smile, and rejoice that that patriotism in the rulers, virtue in the people, and prosperity in the Union once crowned the expectations of hope, unveiled the sophistries of the hypocrite, and silenced the follies of foes. Mr. Adams said, if national pride is ever justifiable or excusable, it is when it springs not from power or riches, grandeur or glory, but from conviction of national innocence. information and benevolence. There is no there is no doubt such was actually the case with our young realm at the close of the last century. Peace, prosperity, union filled the country, and with right religious toleration, temporal enjoyment, and virtuous enterprise, and grandly, uh, and grandly too, when the deadly winter of the Stamp Act and the Tea Act and other closed 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 communion acts of royalty had choked the growth of freedom of speech, liberty and press, and liberty of conscience, did light, liberty, and the loyalty flourish like the cedars of God. The respected and venerable Thomas Jefferson, in his inaugural address, made more than 40 years ago, shews what a beautiful prospect an innocent, virtuous nation presents to the sage's eye. Where there is space for enterprise, hands for industry, heads for heroes, and hearts for moral greatness. He said, a rising nation spread over a wide and fruitful land, traversing all the seas with the rich products of their industry, engaged in commerce with nations who feel power and forget right, advancing rapidly to destinies beyond the reach of mortal eye. When I contemplate these transcendent objects and see the honor, the happiness, and the hopes of this beloved country committed to the issues and the auspices of this day, I shrink from the contemplation and humble myself before the magnitude of the undertaking. Such a prospect was truly soul-stirring to a good man, but since the fathers have fallen asleep, wicked and designing men have unrobed the government of its glory, and the people, if not in dust and ashes or in sackcloth, have to lament in poverty. Her departed greatness, while demagogues build fires in the north and south, east and west, to keep up their spirits till it is better times. But year after year has left the people to hope till the very name of Congress or the state legislature is as horrible to their no is as horrible to the sensitive friend of his country as the House of Bluebeard is to children, and Crockett's Hell of London to meek men. When the people are secure, their rights are secure, and their rights properly respected, then the four main pillars of prosperity, in other words, agriculture, manufacturing, navigation, and commerce, need the fostering care of government. And in so goodly a country as ours, where the soil, climate, rivers, lakes, and seacoasts, the production of timber, the minerals, and the inhabitants are so diversified that the pleasing variety accommodate all tastes, trades, cal calculations. It certainly is the highest point of supervision to protect the whole north and south, east and west, center and circumference of the realm by judicious tariff. It is an old saying and a true one. If you wish to if you wish to be respected, respect yourselves. I will impart the language of Mr. Madison's inaugural address to cherish and friendly intercourse with all nations, having correspondent dispositions to maintain sincere neutrality toward belligerent nations, to prefer in all cases amicable discussion and reasonable accommodations of differences to a decision of them by the appeal to arms, to exclude foreign intrigues and foreign parties so degrading to all countries and so baneful to free ones, to foster a spirit of independence, to to invade the rights of others, too proud to surrender our own, too liberal to indulge unworthy prejudices, ourselves and too ill elevated to look down upon them in others. To hold the union of the states as the basis of their peace and in and happiness, to support the Constitution, which is the cement of the Union, as well as in its limitations as in its authorities, to respect the rights and authorities reserved to the states and to the people as equally incorporated with the essential to the and essential to the success of the general system, to avoid the slightest interference with the rights of conscience or the functions of religion, so wisely exempted from civil jurisdiction, to preserve in their full energy the other salutary provisions in behalf of private and personal rights, and of the freedom of the press, as far as intention aids in the fulfillment of the duty are consummations too big with um, with benefits not to captivate the energies of all honest men to achieve them, when they can be brought to pass by reciprocation, friendly alliance, wise legislation, and honorable treaties. The government has once flourished under the guidance of trusty servants, and the Honorable Mr. Monroe, in his day, while speaking of the Constitution, says, "Our commerce has been wisely regulated with foreign nations and territory, and between the states. New states have been admitted into our union. Our territory has been enlarged by fair and honorable treaty, and with great advantage to the original states. The states, respectively protected by the national government under a mild paternal system against foreign dangers, and enjoying within their separate spheres by a wise partition of power, a just proportion of the sovereignty have improved their police, extended their settlements, and attained a strength and maturity which are the best proofs of wholesome law well administered and maturely and maturity, which are the best proofs of 1 minute of wholesome law well administered. And if we look to the condition of the individuals, what a proud spectacle does it exhibit? Who has been deprived of any right of person or property? Who restrained from offering his vows in the mode in which he prefers to the divine authority of his being? It is well known that all these blessings have been enjoyed in their fullest extent, and I add with peculiar satisfaction that there has been no example of capital punishment being inflicted on anyone for crimes of high treason. What a delightful picture of power, policy, and prosperity. Truly, the wise man's proverb is just. Righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. But this is not all. The same honorable statesman, after having had about 40 years experience in the government under the full tide of successful experiment, gave it the following commendatory assurance of efficiency of the Magna Carta to answer its great end and aim, to protect the people in their rights. Such then is the happy government under which we live, a government adequate to every purpose for which the social compact is formed, a government effective in all its branches, under which every citizen may by his merit obtain the highest trust, recognized by the Constitution, which contains within it no cause of discord, none to put at variance one portion of the community with another, a government which protects every citizen in the full enjoyment of his rights and is able to protect the nation against injury from foreign power. Again, the younger Adams, John Quincy, in the silver age of our country's advancement, to frame in his inaugural address, 1825, thus candidly declared the majesty of the youthful republic in its increasing greatness. The year of Jubilee since the first foundation of our Union has just elapsed. That of the Declaration of Independence is at hand. The consumption of both as was affected by this Constitution. The consummation of both was affected by this Constitution. Since that period, a population of 4 millions has multiplied to 12. A territory bounded by the Mississippi has been expanded from sea to sea. New states have been admitted to the Union in numbers nearly equal to those of the first Confederation. Treaties of peace and amity and commerce have been concluded with the principal dominions of the earth. The people of other nations, the inhabitants of regions acquired, not by conquest, but by compact, have been united with us in the participation of our rights and duties, of our burdens and blessings. The forest has fallen by the axe of our woodsmen. The soil has been made to teem by the tillage of our farmers. Our commerce has whitened every ocean. That's with foam. The dominion of man over physical nature has been extended by the invention of our artists. Liberty and law have walked hand in hand. All purposes of the human association have been accomplished as effectively as under any other government on the globe, and at a cost little exceeding in the whole generation the expenditures of other nations in a single year. In In continuation of such noble statements, General Jackson, upon his ascension to the great chair of the chief magistracy, said, as long as our government is administered for the good of the people and is regulated by their will, as long as it secures to us the rights of person, property, and liberty, of conscience, and of press, it will be worth defending. And so long as it is worth defending, a patriotic militia will cover it with the impenetrable aegis or defense. General Jackson's administration may be demonstrated the acme of American glory, liberty, and prosperity, for the national debt, which in 1815, on account of the late war, was $125 million, and lessened gradually as was paid up in his golden day. The preparations were made to distribute the surplus revenue among the people of the several states, and that August patriot, to use his own words in his farewell address, retired, leaving a great people, prosperous and happy in the full enjoyment of liberty, peace, honor, and respect by every nation of the world. Excuse me for my semi-choppy reading. I've got a little bit of a headache this morning. At the age then of 60 years, our blooming republic began to decline under the withering touch of Martin Van Buren. Disappointed ambition under the withering touch. Okay. Disappointed ambition, thirst for power, pride, corruption, party spirit, faction, patronage, prerequisites, fame, tangling alliances, priestcraft, and spiritual wickedness in high places struck hands and revealed a midnight splendor. Trouble, vexation, perplexity, and contention, mingled with hope, fear, Murmuring rumbled throughout the Union and agitated the whole nation as would an earthquake. At the center of the earth, the world, heaving the seas beyond their bounds and shaking the everlasting hills. So, in hope of a better time, while jealousy, hypocrisy, pro, pretension, and pompous ambition were luxuriating on the ill-gotten spoils of the people. They rose in their majesty like a tornado and swept through the land till General Harrison appeared as a star among the storm clouds for better weather. The calm came, and the language of that venerable patriot in his inaugural address, descanting upon the merits of the Constitution and its framers, thus expressed himself: there were in it features which appeared not to be in harmony with their ideas of a simple um, representative democracy or republic. And knowing the tendency of power to increase itself, particularly when executed by a single individual, predictions were made that at no very remote period, and the government would terminate in virtual monarchy. It would not become me to say that the fears of these patriots have been already realized, but as I sincerely believe that the tendency of measures and of men's opinions for some years past has been that direction that is the direction it is, and I conceive strictly proper that I should take occasion to repeat the assurance I have heretofore given of my determination to arrest the progress of the tendency of a reality, if it really exists, sorry. So, yeah, and restore the government to its pristine health and vigor. This good man died before he had the opportunity to apply one balm to to ease the pain of our groaning country, and I am willing the nation should be judge whether General Harrison, in his exalted station upon the eve of his entrance into the world of spirits, told the truth or not. The acting president Tyler's 3 years of perplexity told the truth or not, with acting President Tyler's 3 years of perplexity and pseudo-Whig Democrat reign. So, in other words, Tyler was a moderate. He was straddling the line between the Whig Party and the Democrat Party. Whigs were the 19th century equivalent of the Republican Party. To heal the breaches or show the wounds secundum artem, according to art. Subsequent events, all things considered, Van Buren's downfall, Harrison's exit, and Tyler's self-sufficient turn to the whole go to show, as a Chaldean might say, certainly there is a God in heaven to reveal secrets. No honest man can doubt for a moment but the glory of American liberty is on the wane, and that the calamity and confusion will sooner or later destroy the peace of the people. Speculators will urge a national bank as a savior of credit and comfort. A hireling pseudo priesthood will plausibly push abolition doctrines and doings and human rights into Congress, into every other place where conquest smells of fame, or opposition swells of popularity. Democracy, Whiggery, and Cliquery will attract their elements and foment divisions among the people to accomplish fancy fancied schemes and accumulate to accumulate power, while poverty driven to despair, like hunger forcing its way through a wall, will break through the statues of men to save life and mend the breach in the prison glooms. A still higher grade of what the nobility of nations call great men will daily, with all rights in order to smuggle the fortunes at one fell swoop, mortgage Texas, oppress Oregon, possess Oregon, and claim all the other unsettled regions of the world for hunting and trapping. And should a humble, honest man, red, black, or white, exhibit a better title, these gentry have only to clothe the judges with richer ermine, and spangle the lawyer's fingers with finer rings, to have the judgment of his peers and the honor of his lords as a pattern of honesty, truth, honesty, virtue, and humanity, while the motto hangs on his nation's escutcheon, every man has his price. Now, O people, turn unto the Lord and live, and reform this nation, frustrate the designs of wicked men, reduce Congress at least one half, 2 senators from a state, and 2 members to a million population. Will do more business than the army that now occupies the halls of the national legislature. Pay them $2, and nowadays this would be about $19,500 a day. 1 minute. No, that would be a yearly income. $2 a day now would be a yearly income of $19,800 a year, and their room and their board per day, except Sundays. That is more than the farmer gets, and he lives honestly. Our tale, the offices of the government curtail the offices of government in pay, number, and power, for the Philistine lords have our nation shorn our nation of its goodly locks in the lap of Delilah. Petition your state legislatures to pardon every convict in their several penitentiaries, blessing them as they go, and paying them in the name, and saying to them in the name of the Lord, go thy way and sin no more. Advise your legislatures that when they make laws for larceny, burglary, and any felony, to make the penalty applicable to work upon roads, public works, and any place where the culprit can be taught more wisdom, more virtue, and become more enlightened. Rigor and seclusion will never do as much to reform a person, the propensity of man, as reason and friendship. Murder only can claim confinement or death. Let the penitentiaries be turned into seminaries of learning, where innocents, like the angels of heaven, would banish such fragments of barbarism. Imprisonment for debt is a meaner practice than the savage tolerates with all his ferocity. Amor vincit omnia. Love conquers all. Petition also, ye goodly inhabitants of the slave states, your legislators to abolish slavery by the year 1850 or now, and save the abolitionists from reproach and ruin, infamy and shame. Pray Congress to pay every man a reasonable price for his slaves out of the surplus revenue rising from the sale of public lands and from the deduction of pay from the members of Congress. Break off the shackles from the poor black man and hire him to labor like other human beings. For an hour of the virtuous liberty on earth is worth the whole of eternity of bondage, a whole eternity of bondage. Abolish the practice in the army and navy of trying men by court-martial for desertion. If a soldier or a marine runs away, send him his wages with the instruction that his country will never trust him again. He has forfeited his honor. Make honor the standard which all men be with all men. Be sure that good is rendered for evil in all cases, and the whole nation, like a kingdom of kings and priests, will rise up in righteousness and be respected as wise and worthy on earth, and as just and holy for heaven, by Jehovah and the author of perfection. More economy in more equality through the cities, towns, and country would make less distinction among the people, and more honesty, familiarity, and societies would make less hypocrisy and flattery in the branches of the community, and open, frank, candid decorum to all men in this boasted land of liberty. And open, frank, candid decorum to all men in this boasted land of liberty would beget esteem, confidence, union, and love, and the neighbor from any state or from any country, whatever color, clime, or tongue, could rejoice when he puts his foot on the sacred soil of freedom and exclaim, the very name of America is fraught with friendship. Oh, then create confidence, restore freedom, break down slavery, banish imprisonment for debt, and restore and be in love, fellowship, and peace with all the world. Remember that honesty is not subject to law. The law is made for transgressors. Wherefore the Dutchman might exclaim, I am not familiar with Dutch, so I'm not going to read the Dutch. I'll read the translation. A good name is better than riches. For the accommodation of people in every state and territory, let Congress shew their wisdom by granting a national bank within the Treasury with branches in each state, county, city, and territory, where the capital stock shall be held by the nation for the mother bank. and by the states and territories for the branches and whoso offer whose offers officers are directors shall be elected yearly by the people with wages at the rate of $2 a day at this time. Nowadays it would be $19,800 a year for their services. That's a little over minimum wage is basically what you'd be um, paying all politicians and bureaucrats so that they don't live a life outside of what they're doing to their constituents, which several banks shall never issue any more bills than the amount of capital stock in their vaults and the interest. The net gain of the mother bank shall be applied to the national revenue, and that of the branches of the state and territories revenues, and the bills shall be par throughout the nation, which will mercifully cure the fatal disorder known as in cities as brokerage, and leave the people's money in their own pockets. Give every man his constitutional freedom and the present full power to send an army to suppress mobs, and the state's authority to repeal and impugn the relic of folly, which makes it necessary for the governor of a state to make the demand of the president for troops in the case of invasion or rebellion. The governor himself may be a mobber, and instead of being punished as he should be for murder and treason, he may destroy the very lives, rights, and property he should protect. This is illustrating the multiple redundancies in the constitutional government. On a city basis, you can override the president. On a county basis, you can override state and city and national. On a state basis, you can override the other three as long as the policies you're overriding are in direct defiance of the Constitution of the United States. Thusly, the constitutional doctrine of nullification at all levels, giving us protections of our rights. Like the Good Samaritan, send every liar as soon as he repents and obeys the ordinances of heaven to preach the gospel to the destitute without pure purse or scrip, pouring in the oil and the wine, a learned priesthood is certainly more honorable than an hired clergy, hireling clergy. Sorry. As to the continuous territories of the United States, wisdom without direct would direct the no tangling alliances. Oregon belongs to the government honorably, and the West Sea, and if Texas petitions Congress to be adopted among the Sons of Liberty, give her the right hand of fellowship, and refuse not the same friendly grip to Canada and Mexico. In other words, inducing them into the United States, not entering into a trilateral treaty with them. And then the right arm of freemen is stretched out. And when the right arm of freemen is stretched out in the character of a navy for protection of rights, commerce, and honor, let the iron eyes of power watch from Maine to Mexico and from California to Colombia. Thus may union be strengthened and foreign speculation prevented from opposing broadside to broadside. "70 years have done much for this goodly land. They have burst the chains of oppression and monarchy, and multiplied its inhabitants from 2 to 20 millions, with a proportionate share of knowledge, keen enough to circumnavigate the globe, draw the lightning from the clouds, and cope with all the crowned heads of the world. Then why, oh why, will a once flourishing people not rise phoenix-like over the cinders of Martin Van Buren's power and over the sinking fragments of the smoking ruins of other catamount politicians, and over the windfalls of Benton, Calhoun, Clay, Wright, and a caravan of other equally unfortunate law doctors, and cheerfully help to spread a plaster and bind up the burnt, bleeding wounds of a sore but blessed country. The Southern people are hospitable and noble. They will help to rid so free a country of every vestige of slavery whenever they are assured an equivalent for their property. The country will be full of money and confidence when a national bank of 20 millions based in the Treasury of the United States, not privately owned with doubtful reserves, and a state bank in every state with a million or more gives a tone to monetary matters and makes uh, a circulating medium as valuable in the purse of the whole community as it in the coffers of a speculating banker or broker. The people may have faults, but they never should be trifled with. I think Mr. Pitt's quotation in the British Parliament of Mr. Pryor's couplet for the husband and wife to apply to the course which the King and Ministry of England should pursue to the then colonies of the now United States might be a genuine rule of action for some of the breath made men in high places who use towards the prosperity of the noble, daring people. Be to her faults a little blind, be to her virtues very kind. We have had Democratic presidents, Whig presidents, and pseudo-Democratic Whig presidents. And now it is time to have a president of the United States. And let the people of the whole Union, like the inflexible Romans, whether they find a promise made by a candidate that is not practiced as an officer, hurl the miserable sycophant from his exaltation as God did Nebuchadnezzar to crop the grass of the field with a beast's heart among the cattle. Mr. Van Buren said in his inaugural address that he went into the presidential chair to chair the inflexible, uncompromising opponent of every attempt on the part of Congress to abolish slavery. in the District of Columbia, against the wishes of the slaveholding states, and also with the determination, equally decided to resist the slightest excuse me, the slightest inference with it in the states where it exists. Poor little Martin made this rhapsodical sweeping with the fact for his eyes that the state of New York, his native state, had abolished slavery without a struggle or groan. Great God, how independent from henceforth slavery is tolerated where it exists. Constitution or no constitution, people or no people, right or wrong, vox Martin, vox diaboli. The voice of Martin, the voice of the devil. And peradventure his great sub-treasury scheme was a piece of the same mind, but the man and his measure have such a striking resemblance to the anecdote of the Welshman and his cart tongue, that when the Constitution was so long that it allowed slavery at the capital of a free people, it could not be cut off. But when it was so short that it needed a sub-treasury to save the funds of the nation, it could be spliced. Oh, granny, granny, what a long tail our puss has got. The Greek might say, the cart before the horse, but the mighty whisk through the great national fire for the presidential chestnuts, burnt the locks of his glory with the blaze of his folly. In the United States, the people are the government. Their united voice is the only sovereign that should rule, the only power that should be obeyed, the only gentleman that should be honored, that at home and abroad, on the land or the sea. Wherefore, were I the president of the United States, by the voice of various people, I would honor the old paths of the venerable fathers of freedom. I would walk in the tracks of the illustrious patriots who cried or who carried the ark of government upon their shoulders with an eye single to the glory of the people. And when that people petitioned to abolish slavery in the slave states, I would use all honorable means to have their prayers granted and give liberty to the captives and to the captive by paying the southern gentlemen a reasonable equivalent for their property, that the whole nation might be free indeed. When the people petitioned for a national bank, I would use my best endeavor to have their prayers answered and establish one on national principles to save taxes and make them collect the collectors of its ways and means. And when the people petitioned to possess the territory of Oregon or any other continuous territory, I would lend the influence of the chief magistrate to grant so reasonable a request, and that they might extend the mighty efforts and enterprise of a free people from east to west, the east sea to the west sea, and make the wilderness blossom as the rose. And when a neighboring realm petitioned to join the union of the Sons of Liberty, I love the way he says that, the union of the Sons of Liberty. We are not the average nation. We are the Sons of Liberty. My voice would become, yea, come Texas, come Mexico, come Canada, and come all the world. Let us be brethren. Let us be one great family, and let there be universal peace. Abolish the cruel custom of prisons, except in certain cases, penitentiaries and court martials for desertion, and let reason and friendship reign over the ruins of ignorance and barbarity. Yea, I would, as the universal friend of man, open the prisons, open the eyes, open the ears, and open the hearts of all men to hold and enjoy freedom, unadulterated freedom. And God, who once cleansed the violence of the earth with a flood, whose Son laid down his life for the salvation of all his fathers, all his Father gave him out of the world, and who has promised that he will come and purify the world again with fire and in fire in the last days, should be supplicated by me for the good of all the people. With highest esteem, I am a friend of virtue and of the people. Joseph Smith, Joseph Smith, Nauvoo, Illinois, February 7th, 1844. My religion believes that it was because of his having too controversial an opinion in religious in the religious world that Joseph Smith was martyred for his beliefs. But it also is evident that after he ran for president, his political beliefs were also too um, too against the grain for the Democrats, and therefore he was imprisoned and assassinated, so that if he ran again, that he would not be able to run again. It is men like these that need to be elected for public office. Those who would decrease the influence of government in our lives, except in cases where the undisciplined or where the taking of liberty has become um, the object of people. And when the object of government becomes the taking of liberty, government as well should be disciplined. Thank you very much for watching. This has been Faces of Truth Live, where we attempt to help Americans think for themselves again, and in the process, bring truth back to the minds of humanity, no matter where they live. If you enjoyed the content, please like, subscribe, comment. Make sure your comments are clean, because we do like making this available to people of all ages. Also share, because a few of my presentations have been labeled as not conforming to platform guidelines, because I call out ideas that are inaccurate, and these ideas are being marketed as accurate, when all they are is accepted. Anyway, stay free, and we'll see you next time.